Hey, Care Partners, welcome back to Memory Care with Teresa Youngstrom. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, I hope you've already hit subscribe so you can stay tuned when I get great ideas to bring you. I have a specifically great speaker guest to share with you this week. It's going to be really great. So, again, I'm Teresa Youngstrom. My company is A Better Approach to Memory Care, and we love to keep trying to bring you greater and just more information to serve you as you're on this journey with someone with dementia. And so today I'm excited to tell you that I have Dr. Catherine Franssen. She's recognized internationally as a public speaker, educator, researcher. She received her Ph.D. in neurobiology from the University of Chicago and has thrived at multiple universities over the past 2 decades, most recently at Longwood University in Virginia, where she earned tenure and launched an interdisciplinary neuroscience program. Her collaborative research over the past 2 decades has appeared in prestigious journals, including Nature and Brain Research. Catherine's widely recognized for her ability to take the latest research in neuroscience and psychology and apply it to everyday life, decision making, and business strategies. Her thoughts and voice appear in hundreds of publications, including CNN and Scientific American. Her broad scientific training combined with her innovative thinking, humor, and passion for informal education lends a unique lens to a range of topics from holiday spending to the love of pumpkin spice. She's very passionate about communicating lessons from neuroscience to improve business strategies, career development, and personal well being. Dr. Franssen has also recently founded Franssen Strategies LLC. Her areas of expertise include stress management, mental health, and neurodiversity. She provides workshops and executive coaching for organizations in public and the private sector. Please help me welcome Dr. Catherine Franssen. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I'm thrilled to be here.
So great. I mean, I just have so many questions for you. And I remember the first time you and I talked, we just couldn't stop talking. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. My good friend Marion Kiner, she's a colleague, also from Virginia. And she said, oh, if you can get this lady, this doctor on your podcast, it would be so fabulous. And so, what an honor to have you here today. So, welcome, welcome. Let's go ahead and get started. I mean, I've got questions lined up. So, in your opinion, how is dementia different from normal forgetting?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. A lot of us forget things, and then maybe we start thinking about, oh gosh, is this a slippery slope? Is it going to get worse? One of the things that, as a neurobiologist, that I know people tend to think of forgetting or memory as they think of memory as if we have got like a perfect picture or video of here's what's happened, here's this exact thing, and I can just hit play and I'm reliving this video, or I can flip through a photo album and I'm seeing things exactly as they were. Well, we know that memory doesn't work like that. We're not archiving the videos and pictures, and we're not just forgetting, like, oh, this little area is blurred out, and if only I concentrate hard enough, I can uncover the blur off of that video or picture. Well, so instead, what's happening when we encode a memory of something like Teresa's beautiful face, is that we recruit millions of neurons throughout our brain, and I'm going to and have little pieces of that memory of your face, of your name, of how I met you, of the conversations we've had in the past, of things that I know about you, and those are all stored in different parts of the brain. That network together then gives me Teresa and the memory of Teresa. What happens with forgetting is that maybe that, like, if I see you out of context, I run into you at a grocery store or something, I think, I know you, but I don't know you. and I've forgotten you. And that's a normal forgetting because we don't have the context. And so that network kind of there's a piece missing there. Well, then once you start talking, I think, oh, gee, now I've got it, and I can put that network back together. I know you, I know everything, all of those things about you that I knew. What happens with dementia, though, is that network, we begin to lose those neurons, and those neurons are gone forever. So instead of this big net that I just have to find the right connection and rethread that together, now I'm missing some of the neurons. Or in the case of something like Alzheimer's, there's these plaque buildups that happen between the neurons, and you can't get the information from one side to the other. And so instead of a nice cohesive network, we've got all these tangles and missing holes and things like that. And now I might not be able to ever recreate who you are or how I know you, or might be able to put together pieces of it, but not the whole picture of you. So that's it's a way of thinking about memory that is maybe a little different than most people think of, but sort of thinking about the neuroscience of how that works and what some of those differences are.
I love that. And I get questions almost every day from someone who say, I think I'm getting what you do, and because they know I work with people with dementia. And I've taught a class called Normal versus Not Normal Aging, because not every time we don't know someone's name is dementia. Yet, I think people forget that your brain is aging along with our eyes are aging, and we need our glasses and other parts of this crazy body. Gosh, I love your explanation. But, you know, why is dementia so challenging for people to relate to? Why is it so hard?
Well, partly because of what we were just talking about, that idea of a network. You and I and others that we talk to, when we think about forgetting, we think about, we just need maybe a different pathway to get there. So that there's normal forgetting. Why did I walk into this room? Just this morning, I picked up my phone. What was I going to do? I was going to write myself a note, and I couldn't even write the note to remind myself, like I forgot. Like all of that is very normal forgetting. And so what happens though is that as we have this network of memory, every time we remember something that we learned in the past, what we're doing is we're bringing it up out of long-term memory storage, and we're playing it, and then we kind of add a little bit of new information. It's not exactly the way that it once was. It's because we've brought it up and refreshed it, and then we tuck it back in and store it back in the archives. And then the next time we remember things, what we're actually doing is not remembering the original. We're remembering the most recent time that we pulled it up. Right. So then we're constantly adding and refreshing and changing that memory just a little bit over time. And that's normal. And it alters those memories a little bit over time. But that's how we can do things. Like when you see someone who has aged, you know who they are, because your memory of them is the last time you saw them, not 20 years ago memory of them, right? And so if what happens in many cases of dementia is the inability to learn new things. So they bring up this memory, and instead of adding the new information into that network and then filing that file back away with the new stuff added in there, they may or may not, be able to bring up that old memory, but they're not able to learn new information and add it on because those networks are broken. Our whole existence, our way of relating to each other is so dependent on being able to learn new information constantly. So the inability to learn new information and remember that something has changed is it's very difficult for us to understand. So if that's not how our brain is working.
Right. So frustrating. Oh my goodness. You really hit the point. So sometimes it's really hard to communicate with people that have dementia. And tell me more about that. What are your thoughts on that? Why is it so hard to communicate?
A couple of different reasons. So we tend to have these communication breakdowns that happen when our loved ones are experiencing dementia. And part of what happens is that they are the regions of the brain that are in charge of language begin to become damaged. So in that network model that we talked about, and when we're trying to express something, we all have that experience. So sometimes we forget the word that we're looking for, or a couple of words, or a phrase, or something like that. And usually the way that we can access it is that we take another road. So if we think about our network is like, I can't get there, I can't get there. Well, it's kind of like this other thing. And then you can circle around. There was a little hole in your net, you circled around, and now you can bridge that back up, you rebuild that net, and then you're able to come up with that word and rebuild it. Even if you never come up with it, or it'll come to you in the middle of the night the next day or something like that, right? So, but what's happening when we're communicating with somebody who is experiencing dementia is that they're not able to find those words, and they may not be able to find enough words to clearly describe what they're trying to say. Their higher cognitive functions, their language, their manners, the way that we interact with each other, the things that we learn later, they've forgotten some of those things. But their emotion is still intact. Their pain is still intact. Mm-hmm. They can still feel pain sensations or discomfort, or something is wrong, but I don't know how to describe it. And when we think about that, like a toddler or a baby, we don't expect them to be able to clearly and accurately identify, I'm uncomfortable because I'm hot and my clothes are too tight and I feel uncomfortable. I kind of have to go to the bathroom, and I've got all these like sensations going on, and I don't know, and I'm overwhelmed and I just want to cry about it or scream or throw a tantrum, but I can't put all the words together and to explain what's wrong, and then to think about what's the sequence of things that I need to do to fix my discomfort. And so all of those pieces are kind of gone. And so we have a hard time communicating because of language center breakdown, and the ability to describe just clearly what's going on within oneself.
Right. It's so hard too, because sometimes they'll act out. And in my experience, they're still trying to communicate. They may not have the right words, but there's emphasis there. And they are trying to communicate. And so I'm really big on teaching people to be a detective and not a judge when it comes to a behavior or challenging situation, because chances are they are experiencing pain, fear, anxiety, something, and they're trying to tell you, but man, like you said, the network is broken and they can't get to it to communicate it well to us. But we can't write it off and we can't disregard it or redirect it necessarily, especially if it's pain, because they still experience pain. So in your opinion, why tell me more about your experience with behaviors or acting out?
Mm-hmm. And so this is where, kind of building on what we were just talking about, thinking about how the parts of the brain that, when we think about the brain, we have our sort of very central, some neuroscientists call it our inner fish. So that we have this sort of very basic brain that we share with all creatures, all vertebrates on the planet, and then there's this reptilian brain that we share with all sorts of other animals, and then we have this mammalian brain on top of that. Now the brain's not really divided up that way. It was a way that people thought about the brain about 50 years ago, but it's a neat way to think about the fact that we do share a tremendous number of structures in our brain with all kinds of species on the planet. Mm-hmm. So we're able to learn about how we think about things, how we communicate with others, how we communicate within ourselves by studying other animal species on the planet and getting to know how they communicate. And they're not always as complex or as verbose as we are. The more we learn, though, we find out they're really communicating a lot more than we maybe thought they were. But if we think about maybe how we might communicate with another species, or how we might sit and watch and understand another species and how it's doing things, then, and this is something I've done a lot of work in animal behavior, is learning, why is someone doing this behavior? Are they running away from something that's hurting them, or are they running towards something that looks really good, right? If they're moving, then where are they moving, away from something or towards something? Those are two different behaviors.
Mhm.
And if you think about that, whether we're talking about another species that we're observing, your dog or cat, where are they going? Why are they going there? Are they running towards you because they're hungry, they're thirsty, they want attention, they want, or they're injured and they want you to find the injury and figure it out? A lot of people have the experience of observing an animal in pain, their pet, for example, or maybe maybe that animal is just experiencing something, and they're exhibiting a behavior, and they don't know what that is, and they don't know how to explain what it is, and so they'll go through that, and it'll be a little bit challenging. So how do we figure it out, right? And so behaviors and acting out is when people don't have an effective way of communicating that. And I just had a quick example from earlier this week. My daughter, who is very language advanced, she is great. She's almost 9, and she talks like a 40-year-old woman. She has great language, but she has limited life experience. And so she was trying to explain to me that her tooth hurt. And I was like, okay, and I was trying to understand what it was. I was like, okay, well, let's brush it really good and massage the gums, and then, go to bed and see how it feels in the morning. And we can call the dentist if we need to, or whatever. And the next day she mentioned it, but it wasn't a big deal. And then the next day she woke up and she said, oh, Mom, I figured it out. There was something under my gum, I think a popcorn kernel, and that's why it was so red. And she had never really had that experience of having a popcorn kernel shoved way deep under your thing and having to work it out. She didn't have the words to explain. All she could do was say something hurts. And she was agitated and fussy about it a little bit, but and it kind of came and went. It wasn't too much. It was just some discomfort, right? We forget as these advanced adults that what it is. Oh, I've had this experience before. Here's how it resolved. Here's the words that go with it. Here's what to do in the future. And we learn all these things. What happens if you pull some of those strings out of that network, and we don't have that? Now we're just sitting there messing with our mouth and fidgeting, and we don't, and nobody knows why, and I can't explain why. So sorry, I went into lecture mode again.
No.
I told you I was going to try not to go on.
I love it though. No, I think people really need to understand that, though. You bring up a great point, because with dementia, if they live long enough and don't have too many comorbidities, right, and their brain continues to decline. I watched this with my mother. She got to the point where she had gotten an injury when they were taking her back to her bedroom in a wheelchair. Later found out she had left arm neglect. Arm was hanging outside the wheelchair as my guess when they took her back to bed. And by the time they got to her bedroom, she was just cussing, but didn't have the ability to even point to her arm, hold her arm, say any other words. It's just where she was in the disease. And so it was just, she was hollering out. Obviously, there was a problem. And so when the caregivers called, unfortunately, they think the best thing to do is give them something. And it's a mission of my life to get folks to understand, especially caregivers, is that, you may not be treating the right thing. And, to medicate it with an antipsychotic or some, an Ativan, drugs that aren't even great for our seniors, but, something just to get her to be quiet. We frequently miss treating the culprit or the reason why they're having this pain. And so in the morning, when I went to give her a bath, that's when I found her nightgown was stuck to the skin tear on her elbow. And And so there was good reason why she was upset. And so I just want people who are great caregivers. I know you're good caregivers. I know it's hard, but to realize that they are not always going to have the ability. And like Dr. Catherine was saying, they lose their tools and the connectors there to be able to communicate well with us. And we just might see them lashing out verbally or physically. And so, boy, do we need to be great detectives because they're counting on us, right? They're counting on us. Let me see what my next question I had for you. Okay, what are some strategies to work with our loved ones and help them without causing more difficulties? I hope this is a good question for you.
Yes, and it's one that I don't have all the answers for. There's a lot of really wonderful resources that are out there. Some of the things that you and I talked about when we have spoken previously is thinking a lot about not fighting with those individuals. So is not getting into a combative mode, recognize and see that they are in distress, or that they're excited, or they're happy, or they're like, whatever that emotion, whatever's happening for them is real, and acknowledging that, and then helping to like you just said, being a good detective to try to put the pieces together. Oh, this person is, they're just saying curse words. My mother's just saying curse words, and I don't know why. Like, clearly something is going on with her, but I have to do some detective work to figure it out. And then eventually we piece it back together and we figure out what has gone wrong. And that's so not fighting against that person, or not like you said, using drugs as our first course to just quiet them down, but instead look for the symptoms, understand the symptoms and look for the underlying cause of them. So those are important, but not fighting with people. There's a couple of really great dementia educators that I have seen recently who are giving tips. There's actually there's this mother-son duo that are on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen this, but and they do some really neat strategies, and they're strategies that I've seen others use as well. But they do some neat strategies of things like giving options, instead of saying, "Are you hungry?" Saying, "Did you want a turkey sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich today for lunch?" It's
Either ors. Those are so great. Either ors.
Either ors are so great. Did you want to put on a new bathrobe before or after your shower? For someone who's not inclined to go do some personal hygiene, and be like, "Oh, did you want," you're skipping a couple steps ahead, and then offering them a choice about something. And then they're like, "Oh, well, I want to wear that pink robe today. And after I want to put it on after my shower. And so it must be time for my shower." And they reason with the network that they do have very much intact. "Oh, this is the pattern of behavior that I do." And so if you can work with what they have, you're working alongside them and helping them toward those solutions. So those are a couple of things that we can talk about.
Yeah, and so many of them want to be in control. So how can we cater and steer our care towards allowing them to be in control? So I love what you said. The yes, no questions really got to go because they just learn to say no. But the either ors have been very popular in my line of work. Even, did you want to shower today or just wash up? Because both of them, I just make sure we give them two good answers. But when they choose who feels like they're still in control, they do. And that's so great to getting them to work with you. When they're cussing or acting out, I have nicknamed those the emergency words. And I feel like, my language and cognition gets damaged. So sometimes all I have is, the cuss word. But I'm trying to tell you, and I call them the emergency words. Teach people that, usually when they're using their emergency words, and typically they have their faves. My mother did, you know, And
Yeah.
you knew there was pain, fear, anxiety, something that we needed to address. And gosh, I'm loving this. So, why are some of us afraid of dementia? And so many are. People, I had a woman today, I walked into an office and she said, "Oh, you're that dementia lady." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I might have to talk with you."
Oh,
And I said, "For you or someone else?" She goes, "I'm just not sure." And it's on everybody's mind as soon as they can't find their car in the parking lot,
mhm.
for an extra 10 minutes, which one day I drove his car, and that did take me a long time to find his car was black and mine was white.
Yeah.
So I thought, "My goodness, I'm gonna have to take my own classes again," you
Yep.
know? But so many people are worried about it. So why are we so afraid of dementia, Dr. Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good, it just happened yesterday. I was like, where is my car? And I turned and my husband was right there. I was like, oh yeah, we drove together today. I'm looking for your car, not mine. And it was just like, what is wrong? Like, it was been a few hours. Like, how did I forget that? Those are all normal forgetting. And as you said, the normal aging process, we lose neurons and we lose connections, and that is part of the normal aging process. What we need to work on, all of us, is to be working on strengthening the connections that we do have, and we can do that in a lot of different ways. And I know that I'm veering off of the question just a little bit, and I promise I'll come back. But thinking about things that we can do, some of the most important things we can do are exercise, challenging our brain in a variety of different ways, physically and cognitively, and then socially, and interacting with people all the time. So those are all some things that are really important for us to do, and that's something we can come back to and talk more about. But why are we so afraid of it? I think there's two big pieces here. And one piece is that loss of independence. The idea, if I don't have my mind, then I will have to give up my own independence. Right. And we can peel back a ton of layers on that. We fear being a burden on our loved ones, on causing stress to our loved ones. Like when we're in that, before dementia has set in enough, then to have sort of forgotten it, we can see that coming, and we know, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety about that loss and that burdensomeness, if that's a word, but being a burden on others, and those are very difficult things. And I think the second big facet of it, so is the loss of self. We're going to lose our own narrative, our own reality, or what we perceive of as reality, and so dementia represents such a different way of thinking about and perceiving the world. It threatens the concept of dementia, then it threatens the very fabric of reality for us. And it's in some of the same ways that we tend to be irrationally afraid of people with schizophrenia. People with schizophrenia are far less likely than anyone else to commit any sort of violent offense. They're actually incredibly should be very non-threatening to us, but the way their mind works is a very different way from the way most of our minds work, and so it challenges us in a very difficult way. So there's a couple of, I think, really, really important things there in terms of threatening our sense of self and narrative, and then threatening our independence. And so I think there's a lot there that we're afraid of when it comes to dementia. Those are all very real things to worry about. I'm not sure that we want how to help people rewrite that script so that they're not living in constant fear and anxiety. I
Right.
don't know how to do that.
Right. And so, yeah, we really do see a lot of fear, especially early on in the disease, when there's more awareness. It's been my
Mhm.
experience that some individuals have awareness this is coming, and then we've got some that develop that anosognosia and they can't see it and they become defensive. paranoid, suspicious. And just one last story. I was talking to a gentleman just this week, and with tears in his eyes, he said, "She keeps accusing me that I'm going to put her somewhere." And it's interesting, it's early in the disease, but her greatest fear is that you're going to put me somewhere. And it just keeps popping up. And he just had tears in his eyes saying, I've never said that to her. It's never been, something that I would plan to do. And, but with tears in his eyes, he tries to defend himself that I would never do that to you. But it is scary and it is a real fear. And, it's pretty much our age is our greatest risk factor still, that I'm finding. But boy, we have so much work to do. Listen, it's
Mhm.
already time to go. And I feel like we've just scratched the scratch. I'm going to beg that you will come back again because we're going to need to talk more to you.
Oh, I would love to. There are so many more things that I think you and I can talk about, and this has been a delight. Thank you so much for having me here.
You are so welcome. It's been our pleasure. And I know my audience is going to be just thrilled to get your information. But tell me, if they want to follow up with you or have more contact with you, what is the best way for them to learn more about you? What are your contacts?
Sure, sure. So, probably the easiest way to find me is at my website. So that's franssenstrategies.com. So my last name, Franssen, strategies.com. And then we can, my email is Catherine@franssenstrategies.com. It's an easy way to find me there. And you can drop yourself straight onto my calendar from that website.
Yep, I've had the pleasure of doing that, guys. It's real easy to get connected and get a phone call to her. So just saying. Well, it's been another great day at Memory Care with Teresa Youngstrom. We've had an extraordinary guest, and we're going to bring her back again because, guys, I think she was a wealth of information for us. And I am so honored to have her here today. All right, everybody, be sure you like and share and subscribe. We have our work cut out for us, getting great information out to the masses so we can help you in your journey with your loved one with dementia. I'm Teresa Youngstrom, and you got this.